Okay, today we're looking at what I call COP, and we start with a song. Koke yomo amindo, miki somo amindo, ibai biedeke mendo, yembufo. Of course, it's in my mother tongue that God is always with us, no matter where it is that we find ourselves. Of course, COP means Conference of the Parties, and of course, the conference that has just taken place in Glasgow. And the Conference of the Parties has really helped in terms of, bringing climate change from being a fringe issue to a global priority. But let me start with the prophecy. November 19, 2021, I see an uptick in violence. So I think it's best for you to take precaution, particularly at this time of the year. But there was also something close to Conference of the Parties back in the day, which is really the Council in Jerusalem. In terms of the background, even though the apostles were preaching, the gospel of grace, there were people that were saying that no, as a Gentile, which is referring to the rest of us that are not Jews, you needed to keep the law to be fully saved, even though Christ had died. And so the Council of Jerusalem, was to consider this kind of very weighty matter, and we take the account from Acts chapter 15, verse 7. And when there had been much dispute, Peter rose up and said to them, men and brethren, you know what a good while ago God chose among us that by my mouth the Gentiles should hear the word of the gospel and believe. So God, who knows the heart, acknowledged them by giving them the Holy Spirit, just as he did to us, and made no distinction between us and them, purifying their hearts by faith. Now therefore, why do you test God by putting a yoke on the neck of the disciples, which neither our fathers nor we were able to bear? So basically, Peter was saying that, this should not be imposed on the Gentiles to keep the law. Of course, the law is what you find in the Old Testament, the sacrificial system, which didn't really help in terms of, permanently doing away with sin, which the sacrifice of Christ has accomplished. But this was very helpful because it freed the Gentiles from going through those motions of the sacrificial system, and of course, the resolution, which was then conveyed to the believers, is found in verse 28. For it seemed good to the Holy Spirit and to also lay upon you no greater burden than these necessary things. And what are these necessary things? Avoid idolatry, do not eat blood, do not avoid things that are strangled, and of course, avoid sexual immorality. So we are called to a life of holiness and righteousness. We are not called to go back, to those sacrificial systems, but to live a life that is pleasing in the sight of God.